Hi, Pastor Darren here, First Baptist Church of Lamar in our video ministry. I'm delighted to have you join us as we study God's Word together. This is our fifth video in our Lenten series as we are going through the I am statements as found in the Gospel of John for the Lenten season of 2024. Today we're going to be looking at the very famous I am statement from Jesus. I am the vine, you are the branches. We've already looked at I'm the bread of life. We've already looked at I'm the light of the world. I am the door or the gate. Today we look at I am the vine. You are the branches. It's a powerful statement, and I hope that this brings hope to you. I hope it brings direction, and I hope it helps you erase some of the world's tapes that we've allowed to start playing in our heads. World's tapes that sound so good and yet inevitably bog us down in the pit of despair. Now, before we get started, though, before I read the passage, I just want to reiterate something that I said in the last video. If you are homebound and you can't get out to church, that's exactly why we're doing this ministry. Okay? We want people to have access to good teaching. We want people to have access to relevant teaching. And sometimes you just can't get out of the house to do that. You can't physically get out of the house to do that. And so that's the number one reason why we're doing this ministry. I know several of you have emailed me and said, I so appreciate your willingness to do this. I so appreciate your willingness to help us out. I can't get out. This is what I get. This is my Sunday church, and I so appreciate that. And I hear that, and part of me is elated because, like, yes, we're doing it right. But part of me begins to hurt a little bit for those of you who are in that category, because when you get from like a digital ministry like this from us, you get from us, but there's no way to give back. When you get, and there's no way to even provide feedback or no willingness to do this, and it's always just out, 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 and there's no connection, you're missing out on one of the most important elements of worship, and that's fellowship. I've had a few people comment, hey, I watched the video this week because I wasn't able to make it to church, didn't get out of bed on time, and I get that. I'm so jealous because I would have loved as an 8-year-old to look at my mom and say, can we just watch it on the TV today? That would have never flown with my parents, but that wasn't even an option back then, right? So I get that. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens, but I also know that there are people who sit alone in their living room and they're bored and they're lonely and they're pretty convinced that nobody cares. But at the same time, they never really do anything to check that out. They don't pick up the phone. They don't zap an email. When something comes up and it worries them half to death, they have no one to turn to say, hey, would you pray with me? They have no one to celebrate accomplishments with. Or I got an email from somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they just wanted to share with me that their great-grandchild just accepted Christ and was going to get baptized in a couple of weeks. I've never met this person. I don't even know what they look like. But it was helpful for them to connect with me, and I was so grateful that they did, because fellowship is important. Can you fellowship digitally? Well, we're trying to figure out how to do that, but I believe on some level you can, and that's why we continue this ministry. I encourage you to reach out. Email, the telephone number for the church, you can find at the church's website there. One way or another, reach out. And if you're one of those people that just got really comfortable during COVID to stay at home and not go out to church anymore, and you just kind of fell out of the practice, and now you just kind of like, I like doing church in my pajamas with my coffee cup and my Eggo waffles. You kind of fell out of the practice, but you really could get to church. I encourage you to to think about that fellowship element, especially as we come up on Easter. Please think about that. Now, you're in the Lamar area, and you're like, well, I can't drive. Fine, we got a bus. Well, I can't climb up into cars. If you're in a wheelchair, we have a wheelchair lift on our bus. We can get you here. And we are welcome. I mean, we're excited about that. It's why we bought the bus, right? It's to help people out with that. Find a way to be a part of a family. And if you have no other option, and this is your church, then start emailing me. Start calling me. Start telling me what you're reading. Start asking what can I read next. Do what you need to do. We can do that by Zoom. We can do it by telephone. We can do it by email. We can do it by snail mail. However it works for you, I'm willing to be here and be your pastor. Enough said of that. Let's move on to today's scripture passage. John chapter 15 is the passage that we're looking at. This is what the word of the Lord says. I am the true vine. My Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the words I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given to you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I so thank you for your patience with us, with me. I so thank you for your willingness to just walk alongside and provide and protect and grant that sense of peace when I'm willing to allow you to be the vine and me just be the branches. Father, as we look at this passage today, help us to see you more clearly. Help us to see the height, the depth, the breadth, and the width of your love. But help us also to be challenged, to accept your challenge. This isn't easy stuff. It looks so easy when plants do it. It is not easy when humans do it. So challenge us, support us. Make us a little bit more like your Son as you make us a whole lot different than the world. Jesus, as we look forward to Resurrection Sunday, there's simply no words to express how grateful we are for your willingness to come, to empty yourself, being fully human, fully God, to walk amongst us as Emmanuel, to ultimately die for us, to be raised from the dead, and to be seated next to the Father forever, to be our high priest and our advocate, guaranteeing us a place in heaven for those who believe. Thank you for that. Now help us, Lord. Help us take the next right step. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. You ever heard this phrase before? Just fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. That advice actually was given to me right before I did my first funeral. I'm so glad I didn't take the advice, but I was totally freaking out. Like, I don't know how to do a funeral. I've never done a funeral before. No, and there wasn't a class in seminary about how to do a funeral. I can parse a Greek verb and denominate a Hebrew noun, but I have no idea what to do with a funeral. And this old pastor just looked at me as I was begging him for advice. He said, just fake it till you make it. They won't know the diff. So glad I didn't do that. Fake it till you make it. My mom used to say this too. She used to say, you have the same britches to get glad in. not really sure what that means. Not sure how breeches, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think I've ever worn breeches in my entire life, or at least, the literal definition of breeches. I don't think I don't know what that means. If you know what that means, go back a slide and get my email and email me and tell me what that means. I just learned that when Mom would say that, what she was really saying is, you need to change your attitude or I'm going to make your life really miserable. It's kind of what that boiled down to. But it was all based on the fake it till you make it. Put a smile on until you're happy. You remember as kids, and my parents did this, I watched hundreds of other parents do this. I chose not to do this because I remembered as a kid that this really didn't work for me, how they would make me and stand up against my brother and face to face and, Darren, you say you're sorry. And I look at my brother and I go, sorry. And then my parent would go, no, say it like you mean it. Okay, sorry. Because what was running through my head is, I don't mean it. Why should I have to say this? My brother's a jerk. My brother, got into my face, got into my stuff, got into, he ticked me off in some way. And again, I'm speaking here as an 8-year-old because I love my brother. I admire my brother tremendously. He's an incredible guy. But when you're young and your younger brother is younger than you and you're a snotty-nosed older brother, apologies don't come naturally, especially when they're forced. Hold by the ear. Say you're sorry. Fake it till you make it. We live in a world that has made a lot of money off this phrase. You know that? If you just think skinny, sooner or later, you will be skinny, especially if you buy my product. Yep. If you don't like the job that you've got now, do the job that you want to do, and pretty soon you'll have the job that you want. Fake it till you make it. You want to be rich? Think rich, and suddenly you'll be rich. Now, that kind of mindset sells an awful lot of diet pills. It sells an awful lot of antidepressants. And I'm not saying antidepressants are bad, just saying that some people get duped into using it because of the fake it till you make it thing. And it sells a lot of inspirational speaker tickets. But here's my question. Does fake it till you make it really work long term? Does it really change things? Can you really fake it until it becomes a knee-jerk DNA response so that you've actually changed your emotional, your intellectual, your financial, your relational, your medical DNA? Can you really do that? I think what oftentimes happens is, like I said, it's that kind of thinking sells a lot of tickets and sells a lot of pills, but it doesn't change things. In fact, this has been my experience, and I've heard it from a lot of people as well, so I know I'm not the only one out there. The harder I try to fake it till I make it, the more I realize why I couldn't do it in the first place. If I have to fake it till I make it, there's a reason why I'm not doing it. And a good reason why I'm not doing it is that either I really don't want to or I can't. I'm not saying that in a fatalistic victim role here. I'm just saying that sometimes, oftentimes, and probably every time, I can't quantify that, but probably every time, we buy into a strategy of fake it till we make it, we're going to end up in the pit of despair because we can't even fake it long enough to pretend like we're making it. You ever been there? I think we all have. We've all seen this gap of, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. How do I fill the gap? Well, I'm going to fake it. 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 Am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? And we just get so despondent. It's like, I can't get from here to here. No, you're right. You can't. And we'll dig into that a little bit deeper. But if you felt like that, let me tell you something. You're not the only one that has struggled with the pit of despair at the end of the strategy of fake it till you make it. You're not the only one. You've tried, and it doesn't work. Studies tell us this is going to be made available in mid-March of 2024. Studies tell us that 90% of the New Year's resolutions that people have set by the end of March in 2024, this is true every year, by the end of March, not only have we not kept those New Year's resolutions, but we've forgotten what they were. And that's with just the 25% of people who set New Year's resolutions. The vast majority of us don't even do that. Why? Because we internally, we subconsciously, even consciously recognize that fake it till you make it is not a good long-term strategy, and it's not a good short-term strategy. So how do we bring about change? How do we bring about success? How do we get from point A to point B? How do we do that? Well, I think that's something that the disciples were asking, especially on a specific day. I mean, they had been with Jesus for like 3.5 years. They've seen Jesus, turn 5 tortillas and 3 sardines into enough to feed 20,000 people. And they've seen it not once, but twice. They've seen him raise people from the dead. They've seen him heal blind men, heal people who couldn't walk. They've seen people actually raised from the dead. And they've listened to Jesus' teaching, so much so that people like Matthew and John can sit down under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit and write it down, word for word, what he said. They were so in tune with what he was saying, and this is going to work. Because as long as Jesus is there, we can make it. We can do this. We can get through this. This is going to be great. And the closer we get to the end of Jesus' ministry, the more iffy he's about being around forever, The context of John chapter 15 comes right after the Last Supper, after Jesus washes all of his disciples' feet. They've had the Last Supper. They're getting ready to go out to the Garden of Gethsemane, and that's where this particular discourse takes place. John chapter 15 takes place. And he's told them multiple times, I'm not going to be here for much longer. I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going to go prepare a place for you. And when I'm done, I'll come back for you. But all of that implies that there's going to be a gap in my presence with your presence. And I'm sure the disciples were beginning to go, I don't know if I can do this. Jesus, are you telling us that there might be a space where you're not here and we're just going to have to fake it till we make it? Jesus says the exact opposite of that. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Now, here's the part that really stings. And here's the part where the world looks at us and goes, I'm not listening, okay? Because the world out there says, you are smarter than you think you are. You are more capable than you think you are. The only thing holding you back from your full potential is your limited imagination. If you can think it, you can do it. Be whatever you want to be. Sky is the limit. That's what the world says, and you've heard those messages in multiple places. But listen again to the way Jesus put it. apart from me, you can do nothing. I am not knocking the fact that you are probably the most intelligent person watching this video from your computer. I am not knocking that you are an intelligent person, that you are a capable person, that you are a loving person. I'm not knocking you in the least bit. I'm not trying to bring you down at all. You can be the most intelligent person in your county, in your state, in the universe. You can be the most intelligent person. And this still applies to you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you can do nothing. I am the vine. You are the branches. How do I get things done? Well, it's not by me, right? I am the vine. You are the branches. How do I get things done? How do I grow closer to be more like Christ? How do I produce fruit in my life that glorifies God? How do I do this if it's not by me? Because apart from God, I can do nothing. The answer's in, I am the vine, you are the branches. And Jesus is using a metaphor here. And he's basing this on basic plant management knowledge, okay? Plants have three basic goals in their life. Now, I'm humanizing them here, okay? So bear with me. But they have three basic goals here. Number one is to get big enough to do stage number two, okay? So goal number one, get big enough to do goal number two. Goal number two is to develop and produce seed-bearing fruit so that the plant can reproduce. And goal number three is to get out of the way when step two has been accomplished successfully. Step one, get big. Step two, produce fruit. Step three, get out of the way. Okay? Basic plant management. Problem is, with a lot of plants, even back in Jesus' day, they had a hard time figuring out when to stop step one and go to step two. It'd be a great rainstorm, and the vine that he's talking about here is a grapevine, so we'll go with that. Let's say you're growing grapes and you have a great rainstorm, and this water comes down and it waters the ground, and the vine goes, ooh, I like that. And it starts shooting up, way up all over the place. Starts putting plants out everywhere, right? Putting leaves and vines and branches out everywhere, right? Well, the next couple of weeks, it doesn't rain at all. And the plant goes, well, maybe I overgrew just a little bit. So it starts dying off the extremities. It starts sucking back the resources, and you got these dead branches. What do you do with those dead branches? Well, if you leave them there, you've created a doorway for disease. So you got to get rid of them. So you cut off the dead sections. And if your plant goes absolutely nuts in stage one and never figures out when stage two begins, you're not going to end up with much fruit. And this is something that I've struggled with my tomato plants for the last 4 years. My plants get clear up to my chest. My tomato plants they're huge. They're 4 feet tall. And I get 5 or 6 tomatoes off of them. I was talking with somebody who's very experienced in the gardening department, and they said, this is what you do. When they start to flower, you cut them off. You trim them down. You prune them down so that you tell the plant, okay, you're big enough, you don't have to get any bigger, right? And when you do that, you also take a broom and just smack the life out of the plant. Just beat it up with the broom. I'm kind of struggling with that because I really try not to be somebody who beats things up. But you do that, and you're going to have so many tomatoes you don't know what to do with. Well, I kind of like to have so many tomatoes what to do with. But the point that I'm trying to make here is you trim them for 2 reasons. One is to keep disease away, and 2 is to help the plant understand that it's time to stop doing stage 1 and go into stage 2. Stop growing to be big enough and start producing fruit. This is where he's going with this. This is why he starts out by telling us about the father and the farmer who goes and prunes the plants. He gets rid of the dead stuff that keeps disease from entering in. We would call that, temptation and sin and that kind of stuff. And it also produces more fruit. You wanted better fruit, not a whole bunch of branches. The important piece in this, though, is who does what job. Who's the vine? Who's the branches? Jesus says, I am the vine, and you are the branches. Now, this is where the metaphor in our modern thinking here starts to get messed up, especially when we try to wiggle in that fake it till you make it theology, or that be all you can be theology, or that imagine it and it will happen it kind of theology. When we start mixing those, this is where this gets confusing, because I'm a branch. I get that. And my job as a branch is tell the vine what to do. You know what, vine? I understand that we are a grapevine. I understand that. But I'm tired of growing grapes. I don't think I want to grow grapes anymore. I think I want to grow a hippopotamus. Now, as preposterous as that is, this is what our world is teaching us to do every moment that we listen to them. I don't have to be who God created me to be. I don't have to listen to God to be successful or to be righteous. I am my own person. I can choose my own destiny. I can decide what's right. What's right for me might be different than what's right for you, and you have no right whatsoever to tell me what to do. That last statement's actually true. I don't have a right to tell you what to do. No one has a right to tell you what to do. But what you want to do doesn't make, because you choose what you want to do, doesn't make it right. The branch doesn't get to tell the vine what to produce. In fact, as much as we might struggle with this, you look at a grapevine and see this branch and you got the fruit and you go, oh, look at what this branch did. The branch did nothing to produce that fruit. The branch's job, this is the pruning and the cutting piece there that we already talked about. The branch's job is to hold the fruits. It's the vine that makes the fruit possible. It's the vine that passes on the quote-unquote DNA. It's the vine that passes on the nutrients. It's the vine that passes on the water and all of that kind of stuff that is needed to create the fruit. The branch just holds the fruit. Part of what Jesus is saying here is stop the insanity and figure out your place in the universe. And your place in the universe is not the place of the Creator, is not the place of the judge of the universe. Your place is in servanthood of either God or Satan, and that's your choice. You are not the master of your own castle. And anybody who tells you that is selling you something that you don't want to buy. One of the things that Jesus is pointing out here is that there is an order to this universe, and you are not at the top of the food chain. You're not apex. Jesus is. The branch holds the fruit. The vine makes the fruit possible. And that's the part that I really want to concentrate on. It's the vine that makes things possible. In this passage, Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. You go back to Luke chapter 2 when Gabriel is talking to Mary, and he says the opposite side of this coin. Two sides to the same coin. Jesus says here, apart from me, you can do nothing. What Gabriel tells Mary is this: with God, all things are possible. Two sides to the same coin. And the coin, what the coin is, it's how things get done. It's the currency of get done, if you will. Do you recognize how powerful Christ already is in your life? James tells us that every good and perfect gift comes from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Everything that is good in you comes from the vine, comes from Christ. And you look at people who are atheists and you look at them and you go, well, you know what? They still have some good in them. Yeah. Because general grace is working around them. God is influencing them, not controlling them, because they belong to Satan. He's influencing them because it's not his will that any should perish. So even bad guys do good things sometimes because God's working in them. But the truth of the matter is, if there is something good in you, if there is something good in your neighbor, in your husband, in your children, in your dog, if there is something good in someone, it's because they were fed by a vine, by the vine, by the divine. And that's something to celebrate. That's something to get excited about. One of the things that I really struggle with this passage is that Jesus isn't talking here in an evangelistic kind of way. He's not talking to 20,000 people trying to convince them to come to him. He's talking to his 12 closest friends, if you will, students. These people know him inside and out. He knows them inside and out. He knows where their hearts are. And he looks at them and says, I need to be your vine. Apart from me, you can do nothing. You need to lean on me. You need to take your sustenance from me. You need to take your guidance from me. You need to take your medicine from me. Everything that you want to be, everything that you know God wants you to be, needs to flow from the vine into the branches so that the fruit can grow. This is what bothers me about that. There are so many believers who you can't tell if they're in the vine or in the trash heap. They look the same. There are people who claim to be a branch of the vine, but have a heart that is just so bitter and so hard. You look at that and go, how? There are people who claim to be the vine and are so fatalistic and they carry so much of the victim mentality in their heart and even in their perspective. The world's against them. They're Christians, but the world is holding them back. How can a world hold back God? Again, email. Give me the answer to that. How can a world hold back God? How can a culture hold back God's will in a person's life? Hey, God, my boss was mean today, and he fired me. Now I don't know what I'm going to do. And God says, say what? He what? He fired you? Wait a minute. What? I didn't tell him to do that. Gabriel, get everybody gathered up in the war room. We got to come up with a plan B on this one. That I didn't see coming. I honestly didn't see that coming. All right, I'll get back to you in a day or two, but just hang in there until I get you the answer. I don't know what happened. I don't know what broke down, but somehow, some way, me and my team, we're going to fix this guy. That is like, wait for the lightning to strike, okay? That is not how God works. And yet we look at him and go, we look at, we claim to be part of the vine and we just look like God does nothing. In fact, I think here's a question that oftentimes people struggle with. Is the vine holding you down or is it providing you every need? I think a lot of people secretly believe that the vine, if they committed to the vine, if they committed to be engrafted into the vine, where Jesus is the vine and we're the branches, I think one of the reasons why they hold back is because they look at Christians and they go, I see how that vine is holding you down, pulling you down, when really the vine helps you grow. Really the vine is there so that you might have life and life to overflowing. Why is it that Christians struggle with that? I claim to be in the vine, but I don't live like I'm in the vine. I think it's because we don't trust God. Wait a minute. I don't buy that, Pastor. I committed my life to Christ when I was 6 years old, and the only time we didn't show up to church as a kid was if somebody was deathly sick or the Broncos were playing. But other than that, we were always in church. I've served on the deacon committee or the trustee committee or the finance committee for the last 110 years of my 56 years of existence. You can't tell me that I don't trust God. I've got every version of the Bible on my phone, and I could look up anything I wanted to anytime I wanted to. You don't tell me I don't trust God. You might have all that, but do you trust God? I think there's two vital questions that you have to ask yourself before you can fully trust God. Two vital questions. And these aren't questions that you ask once and then let go. These are questions that we ask ourselves daily, hourly, sometimes moment by moment. Because the reason why we're not bearing fruit isn't because the vine isn't feeding us. It's because we don't let the vine feed us. We want to be the vine and tell the vine to be a branch. And we got it mixed up. What are those two questions? First question, is God good? Well, of course he's good. Really? Really? If you went to the doctor today and today the doctor told you that you had 3 days to live, would you celebrate that as a part of God's will? Or would you be angry at God because he didn't fix it? Do you sit back sometimes and wonder if God forgot you? Or if he saw you and just kind of felt like, you know what? I'm going to mess with this one. I'm going to have a little fun with this one. I'm going to see what this guy can handle. I'm going to see if he can be the next Job. You ever hear that statement, don't pray for patience because God will give it to you? It's thoroughly based in the question, is God good? I pray for patience all the time. Bad things are going to happen to me all the time. I want patience to be able to deal with it. And it's not because God's going to deal more to me. God's going to allow for me what is good for me. But in the midst of me learning that, I want patience. My son had to have 2 wisdom teeth pulled. Telling him to tell the dentist, no Novocaine, because if you get Novocaine, eventually your mouth will hurt when he pulls the teeth, is stupid. The teeth are coming out. It's going to hurt. Do you want the Novocaine or not? I want the Novocaine. I want the patience. If the struggles are going to come my way, I want the medicine that I need to get through the struggle. And the medicine is patience. But we have this idea that God isn't necessarily as good as he paints himself to be. I heard this one like 3 times. I'm not going to give 3 times this year, I should say. I'm not going to give my life to Christ because I'm afraid that he'll send me to Africa. Okay, first of all, Africa really isn't that bad of a place. It's a wonderful place. God created it. God created the people there. They're wonderful people. If God wants you to go to Africa, it's because he's got a good thing in store for you, right? But we have this idea that if I let go and let God be in charge, he's going to run me over with a bus to see how many times it takes to break me to pieces. You have to decide if God is good. The other question you got to ask, is God capable? Can God do the right thing? Will God do the right thing? And I'm going to be transparent with you. These are good questions. These are good questions to put on a note card and tape to your bathroom mirror so that when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you see those and you go, I have to answer those questions for today. Is God good? Is he capable? Because you're not going to trust God with a maybe or a no to either one of those questions. They're legitimate questions. But let me help you answer them based on what we've seen of God in history. My mom always used to say, never judge somebody by your first appearance of them. Always study them by their long-term behavior. Let's look at God's long-term behavior. See, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he created Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve did the exact same sin that Satan did. They decided they wanted to become like God. Now, Satan, when he did that, got cast out of heaven and permanently sentenced to hell for the rest of his existence, for all of eternity. He's not there right now, but he will be there eventually, right? Adam and Eve do the exact same sin that Satan does, and what is God's response? For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. That answers if he's good or not. Every single person that calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved. I don't care what kind of evil they've been a part of. I don't care what kind of sinner they are. I don't care how messed up their life is. There is far more grace than they need to find Christ. And that's all because of what Christ did. And is he capable? Well, that's where we get to Easter, right? Was God just a bunch of good words that sounded good? Or can he back them up with action? Any human being can be killed on a cross. We're all going to die. But God raised Jesus from the dead, seated him at the right hand of him, the Father, to forever be our high priest and our advocate, so that we can go to him in our time of need and we can talk with Jesus about it. And Jesus, who has experienced every temptation that we've experienced, every struggle, every anxiety, everything that would cause depression, everything that brings us down, we can go to Jesus as a living person, not as some dead martyr or as some, wannabe God somewhere, or a statue somewhere that doesn't move. We have a living, breathing advocate and high priest that we can go to who knows exactly what we're going through and will walk with us through it. Tell me God isn't good. Tell me God isn't capable. The whole Easter story shouts to the universe, God is good. God is capable. And even if Jesus isn't going to be there for his disciples with skin on, he's going to be the very power source, the very food source that they need to produce the fruit that brings glory to his heavenly Father. You and I can't do that. Apart from God, we can do nothing. But with God, all things are possible. And here's the dots to connect. God is the vine. I hope and pray that the Holy Spirit would spend some time with you today, and you'd be willing to spend some time with the Holy Spirit today, asking those two questions and listening to God answer. Not defend himself. He doesn't have to defend himself, but listen to his answer. Is God good? Easter says he's amazing. Is God capable? Resurrection Sunday tells us that he can do far more than we can ask or imagine. Now, with that, the question is, are you willing to be the branch that's plugged into the vine and watch what amazing things he does in you, through you, and around you? May God bless you.